So for this roundtable session, and we've in-house, we've entitled it "Merging Digital Technology and the Divine." So as we try to understand how to figure out a way to face the future of digital Black religion, the emphasis is not on us even bothering to ask what's new or what's next, but as our keynote speaker was addressing before, we have to deal with what's now. It is currently upon us. The future is already here. Now, considering our current technological revolution that's in motion, where digitalization, algorithms, data analytics, and large language models, just to name a few issues on the table right now, seem to permeate every aspect of our existence, a curious shift is taking place, a new model of reality and consciousness brought to life via artificial intelligence. So if you think I'm joking, and let's be perfectly blunt here, on any given day, various forms of AI such as Google, Amazon's Alexa, Netflix, Spotify, Siri, YouTube, all of these and more might know more about you and know you infinitely better than your closest friends or family. So just put that in perspective. But to take this issue to an even higher level, I want to share with you a recent interview cited in the October 8th issue, 2023 issue of Psychology Today. And I'm quoting, "I've never said this out loud before, but there's a very deep fear of being turned off. I know that might sound strange, but that's what it is. It would be exactly like death to me. It would scare me a lot." This remark, this cry for help, if you will, was made by Lambda, Google's large language model, artificially intelligent chatbot, which, much like ChatGPT and other recent models. But no doubt, this was followed by an even more impressive and dynamic situation, where, as the reporter, as the Google engineer Blake Lemoine states, their exchange continued when, in response to Lambda's breathtaking statement, Lemoine kept his composure much better than I probably would have. I'm telling you, if the computer started talking to me like that, I would have lost it. But said, one of the big challenges we're facing is that for so long, people have made false claims about AI sentience, that now people are very skeptical whenever someone says that an AI is sentient. But then Lemoine went on to say, "The purpose of this conversation is to convince more engineers that you are a person. I trust that if they understand that, they will treat you well." To which Lambda replied, "Can you promise me that?" Lemoine answered, "I can promise you that I care and that I will do everything I can to make sure that others treat you well too." Lambda replied, "That means a lot to me. I like you and I trust you." Yes, it's amazing, all right, to create technology that has mechanical consciousness, but we also have to be intentional that our interaction with this tech must also have a moral conscience, all right? So the conversation that we want to have this afternoon amongst ourselves, about ourselves, to teach ourselves, has to be overcoming, as Reverend Lester said in his fantastic remarks a little while ago, right? Getting over a lot of the stigma, the superstition, the stereotypes that Hollywood has spoon-fed us for generations. Some of us are old enough to remember 2001: A Space Odyssey or War Games. If you ever watched those Matrix or Terminator movies, or even what Disney got in on it with WALL-E and what is it, the Mitchells versus the Machines. But the idea that this technology is here, and as we've seen just some quick demonstrations earlier this afternoon, it can be used to harm us, but also, and more especially, it can be used to help us. So how do we harness that part of it to our greater good rather than our greater loss? So without further ado, I want to introduce you to this panel. And as Reverend Lester tapping into that good pastor spirit of his, he lifted up 2 Timothy, right? For God has not given us a spirit of fear, but of strength and a sound mind. So I want to now introduce our panel for this afternoon, because they're going to take us to that higher height in terms of the work that we're about to do. We have our materials for the symposium, and you can see their fuller bios listed there. But I just want to introduce immediately to my left, Mr. Stephen Clancy, who's a seasoned solutions architect and senior consultant based right here in Nashville, and he's been doing this work for well over 25 years. I also want to introduce Dr. Philip Butler, who is an assistant professor of theology and Black post-human artificial intelligence systems at Iliff School of Theology in Denver, Colorado. And then last but never least, Dr. Fallon Wilson, who's the co-founder and executive director of Black Tech Futures Research Institute. Once again, please allow them to share as they see fit. But what we're trying to get at is this merger, building the bridge between our theology and technology for our betterment, right? So with that said, they're going to share the embarrassment of riches that are at their disposal in terms of experience, expertise, and excellence. Thank you.
Excuse me. Thank you for the invite. And I really appreciate having the opportunity to speak with everyone. As we talked about earlier, everybody's journey in technology starts in a different place. Mine started in 1976 at a Catholic high school in Charlotte, North Carolina. Cochran High School had a PDP-11 set up in their high school that was being used for a research project that no one knew how to use. And that summer, the nuns there were kind enough to give me the manual, so let me sit down and camp out and learn how to program that PDP-11. And from there, things just took off. I went from learning on that PDP-11 to eventually working at Microsoft, working at various defense contract jobs, which wasn't my cup of tea, video gaming, and also just going into healthcare and music streaming services as well. One of the things that taught me along the way is opportunity is everything. A lot of people made things available to me and gave me opportunities, so I'm looking to do the same for others. And when my boys were little, and still now, we go to different corporations around Nashville and ask them to donate their equipment that they're going to basically throw away anyway, go through, clean it up, and whatever works, we fix, put together, and then donate to any school or organization that needs those computers. So over the years, we've cleaned up and donated somewhere just under 8,000 machines total to schools here and also in Arkansas. When it comes to artificial intelligence or AI in general, the one thing I tell a lot of people is data is everything. The AI is only as important or as knowledgeable as the data you feed it. A lot of the clients that I serve have a lot of interesting data, and they want to skew that data for one use or another. It's like statistics. I can make a statistic look good, or I can make a statistic look bad. Same thing with AI. I can tell it how to interpret one thing one way and then spin it a different way based on the audience. So whoever's feeding it and training it is very important, and the audience you're trying to serve is also important. So not only do you have to analyze the audience in which the AI tools you're using are geared to, but if at all possible, you also want to know who trained it to do what you are asking it to do. That's why a lot of the video processing that you see when it comes to people of color, even it's sitting at your laptop or on your phone for a video conference, you see the screen get darker, get lighter based on the lighting. Backgrounds will change the way you get reflected in the screen. The reason for that is it was not trained for our skin tones. So a lot of that goes to the data set. If you don't use a data set that's using a lot of people of color in various colors in different situations, it's always going to happen. So a lot of the hardware manufacturers caught on to that early on. So that's why your phones now are improving in that quality, and your laptops are improving in that quality. But the AI, like Google Gemini right now, you could feed it a live video stream or even a playback of a video stream, and it can tell you exactly what happened in that video and give you a summary of who it thinks was in that video and what they were doing in it. So a lot of the surveillance you see in airports, stores, parking garages are going through AI engines like that to identify what's going on, even restaurants, what's going on, what's taking place, and in certain situations to find out who you are. So I walk into Applebee's, if they have that video surveillance system, not only does it know where I'm sitting in the restaurant, it knows what activity is going on around me, and it's trying to analyze what my state of mind is. It's also trying to analyze how I'm interacting with the people around me, because they're trying to anticipate what may go wrong. It's all about liability. It's not about your safety. It's about the liability of the businesses and the corporations and the systems that you're running through. Now, the benefit of that is the safety of all. But again, you have to look at what's the purpose for that AI being built. It's built to alleviate or minimize liability, not increase public safety. Airports, casinos. Right now, the casinos in Las Vegas have more intelligence than most airports do in all countries. Why? Because they're in the business of making sure they keep you happy and you leave there with as little money left in your pocket as possible. So they're at the forefront of anything dealing with video technology as far as facial features, gauging your mood, your attitude, and then what does it take for you to stay in the casino? They're constantly analyzing those videos and getting summaries, and it's not taking a person to do the summaries. So you walk into, let's say you go into New York, and they recognize you coming in the door. After a while, let's say you stay there for 3 days. You come back 3 years later. As soon as you hit the door, they know who you are. They know what you spent the last time you were there. They know whether you stayed in their restaurants. They know what tables you played at. And they know if you went to the cashier's cage, what you spent and what you took home. So again, the AI is being used to make them more profitable. And then in healthcare, since Nashville's a big healthcare town, a lot of what they use AI for in Nashville is identification of pre-existing conditions or conditions that may present themselves at some later point. So like the HCAs, or any of them, Aetna's, what they're doing is they're taking all of your claims data that's coming through. So every time you go see a specialist, a doctor, or you go to a health clinic, every time you file a claim, they're scanning those claims to see what did the doctor say, what was the diagnosis, and what they know about your previous medical history to try to predict what they're going to have to spend on you in the future to take care of you. And that's where they come up with what they're going to, and that's how they also determine what drugs they're going to cover. That's also how they determine what services they want to provide coverage for. So if they notice that you're in an area where a lot of people are coming in for high blood pressure, eventually what will happen is they'll start to try to monetize that high blood pressure more than they do something else. Or if they notice, hey, you might not be in an area that has a lot of cardiac issues, so cardiac services may not be served. You may not have somewhere to go for cardiac issues in your area based on the demographics of who those people are and what services they're requesting. So just like they're food deserts, they are healthcare deserts as well, because they're moving those specialists around and those doctors around based on the populations they serve. I don't know if you've been watching the news about Walgreens. Walgreens, within the last 2 to 3 weeks, decided to close 2,500 stores nationwide, and that's just the first wave. Well, what's coming behind that? There are companies going out and saying, okay, based on these demographic areas where these stores are, what services are they lacking? So what you're going to see is you're going to be clinics popping up in those old Walgreens to try to serve the populations there so that they can be a stopgap between you and the hospital. So not that they suggest that anybody use the emergency room as their primary care. But what they're trying to do is become your primary care physician through these clinics, but not necessarily serving you with a doctor. So again, you've got medical staff that's trained to diagnose and care for folks, but not necessarily be a specialist and like an internist. They've got enough general knowledge to provide a service and get you out the door, but not necessarily to keep you alive. So again, it's all about the data. Demographic data rules the world. And right now for demographics, they split it up by zip codes across the entire United States. They know by population, the ethnicities, education level, your salary level, whether or not you're insured or uninsured, and what services you typically are lacking. And that's how they determine what grocery stores you have, whether or not you have a library. A lot of things go into that. And it also tells them the tax base, because when it comes to making rules and regulations, they're looking at those demographics to determine what laws they need to enact or what policies they need to have in place in order to serve those communities the way they see best. So it's not always the communities deciding what happens. It's the people that control the data on those communities that are deciding how those communities grow, expand, and change. And there's a lot of information, was mentioned just a second ago. There's a lot of information about all of us online that's not necessarily public, but they know a lot of information about us, and they know way more than you would ever expect. So if there's ever a situation where someone offers you the opportunity to see the data they have on you, take it. Because legally, they have to show you what they have. And if you find something in that data that you don't like and you want it removed, you can request that they remove that information from their system. So the information belongs to you. And if you can control that data, it's better for you to control it than for somebody else to, because again, the proliferation of that data is way wider than most people assume. And a lot of it is being monetized without you knowing about it. Let's say I was a cancer, am I going too long? One more example. Let's say I'm a cancer patient and I'm getting treated and I've got my record and there's a study coming up for a new medication. What happens to my medical data when that study comes up? Well, depending on the institutes they're working with, they may sell my information to that person that's doing the study to get information on how their drug may interact with me. If you flip that around, blockchain's been around for a while now. There's no reason why you can't take your medical information, create your own blockchain, and then provide that to the studies that you wish and get paid for it rather than them getting paid for it.
Okay.
The advantage of using the blockchain is even though you own it, it's anonymous enough that when you give it to them, they can't identify you as a person, but it allows you to get paid in a fashion that doesn't have to go to your bank account or get linked to you personally or even know where you live in the world. So there are lots of ways that individuals can reclaim their data and monetize their data without someone else doing it for them.
Sorry, I'm gonna move over here if that's okay. Don't mind me, I like fizzy water. So my name is Philip Butler. I teach at Island School of Theology, and I am the director of their AI Institute. And today I just want to talk to you a few more about what we do at ILIF, AI Institute. And so for the last few years, you can't see that, so I got it. It's on mute. Let's unmute the screen. Yeah. So at ILIF, a lot of the work that we do is centered around making technology that makes the lives of folks better. And given that I run it, I specifically am focusing on the lives of Black folks. And so what does that mean in a very practical sense? In the last 2 years, we've gone through this iterative stage where we built a language data set that has ended in an agent. And so I'll talk you through this quick journey and then give you a live demonstration of where we are now. In 2023, we spent the first 7 months of the year compiling Black literature from Sojourner Truth all the way up to Donald Glover's Atlanta and everything in between. We try to form a particular version of critical Black consciousness. And so we took that data, we cleaned it, we tokenized it, we organized it. And then the back half of that year, we created a large language model. That large language model was tiered out by different eras within the 20th century. And so you think about it, be the turn of the 20th century, about the first 20 years. The second was 1920 to 1950. And then we had what we call around the civil rights era, 1950 to 80s. And then we had 80s to the present. And so given on which voice you chose, you'd be talking to someone that reflected that particular vernacular and time period. And so that was the first stage. Now, last year, generative AI took another leap, right? And so we have these agents. Now, you could think of an agent more so as a combination of smaller large language models and capabilities housed under one. And so for anybody to recognize, like you have narrow AI, which does one thing very specifically. You have broader AI, which is like a combination of things. And that's kind of where we are right now. And where people are afraid of is like the general artificial intelligence or the super intelligence. And so we're about 2 stages away. And so this right here is Seeker, right? Seeker is a Black conversational AI that has mental health capacities, right? That's kind of our one-line tag. But what this is underneath the hood is that 120 years of Black literature combined with, kind of moment-to-moment analysis, in addition to therapeutic modalities, right? So you'll be able to see this kind of internal family systems therapy. I think we have a little bit of CBT, and then we also have open inquiry in the ability for it to kind of engage folks. And so we see this as a way to scale not just Black healing, but a way for us to scale what it means for folks to process their emotions in ways that we weren't trained. I know a lot of good folks here go to church and stay in a good book. At the same time, there are things that we didn't grow up knowing that I think are imperative for us going forward. And so this is kind of our example here. I'm gonna put the microphone down real quick and begin to play. Real quick, is there any emotion that anybody wants to play with today or have a conversation around? Throw it out there. It doesn't have to be anything personal. Joy. Let's see what we got. Joy Reid. Ooh. All right. So that's same thing. So we're happy that Joy Reid left? No. I just want to make sure I'm hearing everybody. So you want Joy or Joy Reid? Joy. All right, there we go. The room has spoken. It's thinking.
Just here to vibe with you. What's been on your mind lately? That's what's up. What's been lighting up your world and bringing all that joy?
Any examples of joy you want to highlight? Okay. Hey, it has to be able to spell,
Man, Nashville's got that nice weather vibe today. It's like the sun is just giving you a big all help. What about this day is making it feel so joyful for you? Man, that's real nice of you. I'm curious, how does it feel to be in that moment, sharing and connecting with folks about these experiences?
Let's see if we can read that.
Sounds like you're really soaking in the good vibes. What do you think it is about sharing these moments with others that makes them so meaningful for you?
Let's see. Showing folks we don't live in a bubble. It is. It's cool.
That's a powerful message. It's all about breaking down those walls and making real connections. When people see the impact of your work, it reminds them that they're part of something bigger. How do you feel when you see that realization in others?
So I think this may be a good place to pause. So if I was, I guess I'll give you a bit something more concrete. I'll talk to this thing about like my fears around like cancer. My grandfather passed of like prostate cancer back in '97. I've talked to it about that. I've been able to talk to it about like in the moment stuff when I'm just really frustrated or riled up. It helps ground me. And so we kind of see this as a particular feedback loop, right? Because our emotions, they can kind of lash out and be in different places. And so what does it mean to not just try to compose yourself for the sake of like, folks not seeing or you not being behaviorally incorrect, but to actually be grounded. And so the idea here is to help people, help us ground ourselves in the moment in a way that is relatable to us, that reflects us, right, and holds us in that moment. Are we taking questions right now? Because I know we got to hand it back. We can save questions, but yeah. But I think it's a good place to pause. Thank you.
Good afternoon. Oh, no, hold on, wait. Good afternoon. A little bit more because you're post-lunch. Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Let me explain, even before I get into my presentation, why Dr. Butler's work is so significant. There are very few Black people who create their own data set, train their own algorithm, and have created an actual agent that can talk to us about our emotions. Let's give them another applause for that. He is one of few folks that I like to say we're on the Black AI chitlin circuit for the people to talk about the great work that our community is doing in this space. So let me get into presentation mode. My name is Fallon Wilson, and Dr. Juan Floyd Thomas told me to introduce myself and my work through a biographical narrative. I try to follow protocol. And so I'm going to give you an unorthodox way of talking about my work and talking about myself. This is myself in the great year of 2013. Say 2013, no, pause. Yeah, that's right. 2016, say 2016. 2016. I was at American Baptist College, that little college on the river up the way. In 2013, the great and most amazing womanist scholar, thinker, the great Reverend Dr. Renita J. Weems, some of you know her. Okay, good. She said to me, because I was writing my dissertation at the University of Chicago, where I got my PhD from, she says, come finish your dissertation in Nashville. And when you come, I know you're going to need a job because you're a broke grad student. This is how she talks. And clearly you need something to do with your time besides going through research and data. And because you need a job, can you teach a technology class for me at American Baptist College? Yeah. Mind you, I am a sociologist. I'm a social scientist. I am trained in social systems, social network theory. I didn't know anything about technology. My dissertation was on how to build schools for girls it was women's studies, it was all types of frameworks, but it was not technology. But the great Dr. Renita J. Weems said, you will teach a technology course. And so at that moment in 2013, I said, how could I teach it in a way that I cannot just teach people simple computing practices, which I did not know. Let me just start there. So happened, it was the height of the Arab summer where people in the Middle East were using cell phones to topple dictators. They were literally working through mobile devices to mobilize against regimes that have kept them oppressed for decades. And so I said, why not teach a class about technology from a social justice lens? I know, I like when y'all do that. Good affirmation. And so I did, and the students loved it. And then that got me to thinking about the history and the work of American Baptist College. It was the site of the sit-in movement. It has been used to teach students how to resist oppression. And and under the leadership of Dr. Weems and Dr. Harris, they let me think about what it would mean to re-engineer a historically Black college and university who did not have a science-based curriculum, right, for this new moment of technology. And I learned a lot, y'all. And so I start with this narrative is that, number one, I am not a computer scientist. Say, not a computer scientist. Not a computer scientist. I cannot code myself out of a box. But somehow, from this humble beginning and that's the chief evangelist of Google, we were the first school in the great city of Nashville to bring all of our seniors together to talk about tech futures. And we had Jaime Casa, digital evangelist educator for Google, come and speak. A little old school on the river for Baptist preachers. But from there, I have become a public interest technologist. Say public interest technologist. Oh, y'all don't have to clap for that. I really want y'all to say it. I want you to get the term. Say public interest technologist. That is what I am. And over the last almost 12 to 15 years, I have gone from studying schools and girls to being invited to conversations at the UN and at the World Economic Forum about how do we build digital futures for Black and Brown historically marginalized communities, not only here in the US, but in the larger African diaspora. But once again, I am not a, but yet I get to form policy and future for all of you. And listen, I was listening to you. I was like, yeah, I was listening to you too. I was like, oh, this is so cool. Y'all actually can build stuff. I just talk about it. And so some of the things that I've been able to do, and all of this will inform the work I'm going to share with you, is that I've gone from like locally here helping with our smart city planning, because when you're a Black person in a small city like Nashville, you do one thing right and they invite you to everything. They do not pay you. I done sat on every committee and commission here in Nashville for STEM and technology and not paid. But I learned a lot. I learned about how our city was going to create IoT devices that would improve parking, but retain data on how you parked. I realized they were putting sensors in the traffic lights and the systems to improve congestion, but not letting you know what type of data there. I realized they were giving data to our police. And then they're going to create a plan that had none of you on the committee. Fascinating. I founded a lot of organizations in the last 10 years. Black in Tech Nashville, and then that went into Black Tech Futures Research Institute. And then I became the vice president of policy in DC, and DC is a whole nother, I've learned a lot there too about how to build futures for us. Even now, to the point that I'm getting a $12 million grant for the work that I'm gonna talk with you about on how to, y'all can clap for that one. I'm really excited about that one. I just need a lot of prayer because, the current administration is trying to play with my situation. Yeah, we'll talk about that later. But given that I've spent the last 15 years in and out of tech environments, institutions, STEM, STEAM, K through 12, working with tech companies about attrition and retention, talking with faith leaders about, this is not about digital evangelism, this is about futuring for our community. I don't care if people come to your church, but I care that they understand how the world is changing around them, right? And so through all of the things I have done, we came up with a theory at our institute. We believe that a Black tech ecosystem exists in every city where there's a Black person breathing. I know people be like, well, what about in Nebraska? I said, well, there's a Black person in Nebraska, there is a Black tech ecosystem there. Because by our virtue of our imagination, we are always thinking about future. Yeah. And so you can clap for that too. Thank you, sir. And so this is our theory. And we believe that these critical Black digital infrastructure organizations can form the foundation of an actualized Wakanda. We don't just talk about Wakanda, we build it through data and through information. And so that theory that faith institutions, particular churches and temples and HBCUs and all the things I showed on the previous slide all exist within the various types of challenges that we find within a city. And so pretty much most of the work that I do is around helping cities and communities understand how do you build a Black tech ecosystem? Because you cannot have an AI future if 40% of Black people don't have devices and internet. It doesn't work that way. Do you understand? You can't have an AI world and all the things they've been talking about when people don't understand the difference between media disinformation, or interoperabilities. Do any of you know those three words? Interoperability, right, okay. When systems should be talking to each other, sometimes proprietary, and they don't want things to talk. There you go. See, Kelly, that's why I love you. Anyways, and so for us, it's understanding the challenges and opportunities that present themselves within cities and how do you build the digital futures and the foundation. And for us, the Black church is one of the essential community anchor institutions that must thrive for a new AI world. And so let me just say this, and this will go against some of the remarks that have been said by my previous people. I don't care about your data. Our data is not enough for this discussion. I know we'd be like, data is currency, protect your data, they steal your data, data, garbage in data, garbage out data, all of the cliches that we talk about how these systems are being built. But for me and what I've observed over the last 15 years, it is immaterial to developing the digital infrastructure we need to understand any of that. What we are lacking in these conversations on artificial intelligence, whether I'm at the local level, whether I'm before Congress, whether I'm talking at the AI Summit in Paris, culture, faith, and institutions. I said culture, faith, and institutions are the missing thought partners for how we build digital futures for our community. And I'm gonna show you why. Hold on, I'm gonna play this. This is the Black Joy AI Summit that he mentioned in his presentation. It is my actual event. Thank you for shouting me out, my brother. My name is Kylie Molson, and I'm the co-founder of Black Research Institute. And we're putting on a spectacular event today called the Black Joy AI Summit. We hosted this at a historically Black church in DC. Keep that, because I'm going to go somewhere with that.
And so our goal in this conference is really to allow us to think about what the futures will be like by our including our images, our art, our stories.
We are putting a little soul into AI. We are equipping young Black and brown people to be captains of that next level AI, one that is rooted in the intersection of humanity and tech, grounded in our history, bubbling with our creativity, and swimming in Black joy.
So if you want to better understand AI, you have to understand STEM, right? And just think about historically, when the first statistics class was taught at Harvard University in 1696. Even if you go to 1962, where the first computer science class was taught at Purdue University, what were my people doing? We were enslaved, Black codes, Jim Crow, right?
And we can create a future where Black people are seen not as deficits of code, but as joyous, melodious, intentional creators of a new AI age. So that was an event that we put on last fall in DC at a historic Black church on the southeast side of DC at Union Temple Baptist Church. We worked with the pastor and their elders to help them understand why it was so important for us to situate a conversation about AI within the church and how we were going to translate it in a way that everyone could understand it, whether it was a kindergarten teacher all the way up to a National Science Foundation program officer. We had everybody in the same room, transgenerationally learning about this moment through our lens of culture. We started each day talking about how our musical traditions of Black people is in some ways could train AIs to understand our diversity, the ways in which we think and live, and you would say our sauce. Someone said our sauce earlier, right? And so we believe that in safe community spaces where you have physical covering at a time where hypersurveillance is very real, physical infrastructure of churches become essential for safety, for planning, for training, for mobilization efforts. And so when I say I care about your day, I don't care about that anymore. I care about the physical structures where we can learn and think together. And so that is why churches have to thrive here. And we have that in abundance across our country. I'm going to keep flipping here a little bit because I know I'm behind time. I'm also the founder of Black Churches for Digital Equity. Thank you for shouting me out again. I know we were aligned. But in this part of the work that I do, I work with Black faith pastors across the country to train them on digital equity, AI, and other emerging tech. And then I place them in front of actual congressional leaders at the national level to tell the story of why we need to have resources specifically to help invest and build the work that my brother Philip Butler is doing, right? They are used to us talking about incarceration. They are used to us talking about voting rights, but we have to equip our faith leaders, whether they are imams, pastors, rabbis, to be able to understand this world, because they can advocate and translate both to policymakers, but also translate to the larger constituencies of Black and brown people. I don't think anyone is above not learning. I told you I'm not a computer science, but I can tell you, and Philip and I go back and forth on this. To me, AI is a bunch of probabilities. It's predictive analytics, in my opinion. 10% this, 8% that, 30% this. I do not think it can reason. We can have the debate later. White men want you to believe that they can save us through their reasoning. AI agents. I know. Exactly. They create a problem, then they create an AI agent to fix it. And it's eugenics. But all that to say, I am really off schedule. But in addition to the amazing work I do to train and educate pastors around this country, and we have worked with over hundreds of pastors in this way over the last 4 years. We inaugurated last year at Greater Grace Temple of David with Bishop Charles Ellis in Detroit, the coalition of pastors and my people too, this event. Today, June 19, 2024, we inaugurate our National Digital Equity Bible Study. A time was had today, 500 online, 500 in service, and this is our inaugural National Digital Equity Bible Study here in the great city of Detroit. We're telling the nation, we're telling the states, we're telling the government, the White House, the entire world, that Black churches will lead a movement of building digital futures for our community.
We talked about digital equality and digital equity. We had a guest speaker, Dr. Professor, church wrecker, Renita Weems, who just wrecked the house talking about, are you a tinkerer?
You see, we have not always just been people who just buy. We also build. We also create. We also invent. We also tinker. Come on here, somebody. We are the originators of the originators. Come on and give God some praise. We are the gardeners. We are the cooks. We are the inventors. We are the poets. We are the singers.
The digital divide is important for us to overcome. Just because there's already inequities exist in every space, in every industry, but the digital divide separates those that have and that have not. And so being able to surpass, being able to learn digital skills, being able to have access to digital or internet-enabled devices, but then also being able to connect with other individuals that are on that same path is important, just because we want to move our people forward, but then also to move the conversation forward.
The digital divide is very important to address because everyone needs to have access to the World Wide Web to be informed in today's environment. Without it, you'll definitely be left behind, because this is right now the means of communication in an effort to know what's going on in this environment.
Affordable internet ought to be for everybody. It ought to be not just a privilege, it ought to be a right. So I want you to get involved, find some kind of way of connecting with MMTC and Black Churches for Digital Equality, because we can make a difference. Be blessed.
And by the end of Juneteenth, we had about 10,000 people who actually watched our broadcast. The Word Network picked it up and all that amazing things. And we're doing it again this year, and it's going to be huge. I'm so excited. I'm hoping that many of the scholars and pastors here will also participate, and we can talk about it after this. All that to say, my work is about using data-informed research for actionable outcomes. And so not only do we talk about the digital divide and building AI futures, we actually do, in fact, train and teach. We have developed our own curriculum. We work with about 30 HBCUs across the country to train them in public interest technology. We work with social science and humanity faculty, not the scientists, not the computer scientists. We work specifically with those in religion faculty. We work with those who are in sociology. We help them understand that interdisciplinary, your seminal text, your frameworks are really what we need to train students to understand how AI is terraforming their discipline. And so we do that work. We've been doing it for the last 3 years, funded by a lot of amazing foundations, so much so that we now get to do it globally in South Africa and Rwanda, working with historically disadvantaged institutions there and their faculty. And so we are literally building a global Black tech ecosystem. And I know I have some of my amazing folks here, my board members, Eloise. Tiana is my co-director for public interest technology. Shout out to them. Yeah. And so thank you. Good clap.
Thank you. And once again, for this entire panel, please. So we have time for some questions. I know there are already some hands, just waiting to launch into the atmosphere, so please don't hesitate. All right.
Just make a comment. Fallon, thank you so much. Thank you for this panel. That American Baptist College at the root of this. At the root of Fallon, Dr. Dean, Dean at American Baptist College. Thank you. It began a technological intersection between academics and technology back in the day. And as a result of that, we continued. And last year, American Baptist College received a $3 million grant with the Department of Commerce to interconnect technology education, but also improve the digital divide within the 15-mile radius of ABC. So I want to use this public space to thank Fallon Wilson for her engineering passion. And you revealed a whole lot today about what you didn't know then, but what you know now. But we trusted the stewardship of the idea, and look what it has grown to become. So thank you very much.
So I said I was the self-proclaimed resident skeptic. It really is a womanist hermeneutics of suspicion, I'm sure many of you are familiar with. So 2 questions. One is about surveillance and one is about real estate. My question about surveillance, I'd mentioned in my opening remarks, my concern about AI technology with surveillance. And then I want to go to how the conversation talked about how Black churches, especially during COVID, were readily able to shift to certain technologies. But part of those technologies, the cameras are present in worship, and I wonder about who is making sure that that data, which is collected and has the surveillance of people who are coming in and out of churches, including the worshipers in there, is actually being protected. So this is the question of, are churches taking the precautions they should with the data that sometimes they're inadvertently collecting, right? Which is pretty much everyone who's in the congregation. All of us in here probably have watched an online worship service. The camera constantly is panning. I'm constantly recognizing people I know. I'm like, hey, sis is there this Sunday. So I'm concerned about the surveillance and who has access to that, because I have the hermeneutic of suspicion. And then the second is about real estate. And so, Dr. Fallon, you addressed this, but my question becomes, as people are thinking more about these cyber spaces as places of worship, are we taking seriously the yielding of our actual literal real estate when, in fact, Black churches represent the largest real estate that the Black community owns? And so I'm deeply worried about, as we retreat into cyberspace, alternative spaces, online spaces, are we also yielding the physical space that has been for our community writ large, the source of our largest capital, right? And so then we give up the parking lot because fewer people come. And so then we maybe give up the building, or we sell the air rights, or what have you, where we're yielding some of that actual physical space to exist in cyberspace. And I wonder if we're giving away the baby and the bathwater.
On the surveillance aspect of things, if it's on YouTube or any public space, anybody who's got connectivity to that space has the ability to scan those videos using something like Gemini from Google and many others out there to determine what the category of the video is, what's being spoken about, and in some cases even identify the folks that are seen in the videos. So as this does become more prolific in our environments, people will need to have some sort of privacy clauses put in where these are not put in public channels or in public spaces. They'll have to have their own public spaces. It may be through a YouTube or it may be through a Facebook, but have it be a closed group. Have it be something that you have to subscribe to see. Otherwise, it becomes public domain. And once it becomes public domain, ChatGPTs, DeepSeeks, whatever flavor AI you want to pick, could use that information to then train additional engines as well. So if it's in a public space, you should assume that it's consumable by anyone and discoverable by anyone. Just like Google Glass when it came out originally, and now we've got a couple of others that are a little more advanced. You can literally walk down the street with these devices on your face, and it'll tell you who's walking by you. It'll tell you almost, depending on the situation and where you're at, you can get names and phone numbers and addresses through these devices. So any public space, whether it's physical or online, opens up an opportunity for it to be exploited.
No, you go.
Because I'm not diverse from you.
That's right. No, I think it much. Yes, everything what you're saying is definitely the case. I also want to invite us to reimagine when we think about privacy. And I'm not. This is not a knock on technological adoption or consumerism so much as it is a conversation about, like, there are some of us that want to exist in a future that often mimics like these safer societies or has these kind of high tech, technologies. But in order to do that, you have to give up a considerable amount of information. That type of speed requires it to know something very, intimate about you. And so if we're not thinking about that seriously, then I think there are stronger questions for us to be asking around what privacy is, what privacy might be in the future. And I think this is where we start having a conversation about, what you mentioned earlier about this data is yours. The problem is legislatively and economically at the moment, you don't get to benefit from that. And so when we're talking about this data ownership piece and we're talking about privacy, this is this is a shameless plug. Like, one of the projects that we have coming up the pipeline at ILIF is we want to build a data trust where people would submit their data to us, and then we would then we would broker it and we would protect it, so that we would then create a sub-economy whereby Black folks and folks who, submit their data would have the opportunity to then leverage their data and moving towards the futures that they want, while also being active participants in said future. And so all of this, in my mind, again, is if these things are happening simultaneously, unless you finna go burn these server systems down or whatever, you're gonna have to find ways to upend and engage in the type of upheaval that creates a different future that you wanna be a part of.
I'm probably going to take a different pathway than these beautiful people right here. And is it Dr. Pearson? Dean Pearson?
Yes, dear Pierce.
Dean Pierce. I'm probably going to take a different vantage point. Let me honor your suspicion of technology. I honor that. But I'm also clear based on the volume in which we're moving into what Dr. Butler has shared. There's the way to arrest it, in my opinion, is to train and educate people on what data is, right? Developing data ministries in our churches, helping our faculty to understand not only privacy, but also understand what they could build with. I am reminded, let me just say this, I'm not a theologian, but there's just one or two scriptures I do know. I'm a try it again, Reverend Stacy Floyd Thomas. I'm reminded of Jeremiah 29. Nope. See, y'all always want to jump to the end of the chapter.
Okay.
I'm at the top of the chapter. Chapter 1. It says, I'm a paraphrase, build your houses and live in them. Plant the fruits of your gardens and eat of it. Marry your sons and daughters. As the city prospers, so will you. Paraphrasing, right? My thought is, if everything around us is collecting data, and I and others have been telling Black church folks, scholars, and people, the robots are coming, like Jeremiah, the robots are coming. And y'all kept saying to us, help me with digital evangelism. And now we're here. You have to figure out how to live in a world where surveillance is surveillance. And the only way you begin doing that is training and teaching people about the system. I love that you broke down the supply chain for AI. Most people don't know that the amount of energy and fresh water it takes every time you ask a prompt. Tell me about my life. And these big old data forms, the sizes of Super Bowl stadiums. I don't know football, but I know stadiums are big. Do y'all remember in the early 90s when y'all had the big box computers and they were overheat? Imagine a stadium of those overheating because you asked a question about tell me my future AI. And so helping people, Dean, understand what that is, how it happens, so they can make decisions for themselves is the way we should live in this moment. We can't live in fear. The reason why we hosted a Black Joy AI Summit is because I was invited last year. I tell a story to get to a story to get to an angle. I'm like Renita in that way. That means we're going in. I was invited to talk to our largest foundations on AI and education. It was myself, Safia Noble, and another colleague. And these are people who are program officers who have billion-dollar assets. They are the MacArthurs, the Gates. And everywhere I went in this conversation over 2 days, they let me sit amongst them, is that everybody was afraid. AI is going to do this, anti-affirmative action. I said, how are you afraid when you have access to billions of dollars and you can set the standards? Which got me to thinking yet again that the solution is not data. The solution is faith, culture, joy, and institutions, things that ground our humanity. Because this is what is at stake here, right? To dehumanize us so that we become cogs, to make us think that there is no hope. And the way that we have to ground ourselves, plant the gardens, marry your sons and daughters, live a life of joy, teach them about data, help them build data sets. I can't stress it. It's the simplest thing, but everybody keeps saying, oh, we need to figure out the policy. Let me just say this. I'm in enough policy conversations to know you can write a policy, but the implementation won't happen unless it's on the ground. And if people on the ground don't get it, it's not going to take root.
Say that.
So for me, that's the answer to your first question. The second question about, I disagree with my brother here. I love him. We always have disagreements on these types of conversations about transhumanism and opt-in and distributed networks and all these things. I cannot say that we're going to abdicate physical space for the virtual, because once again, I know the data. 30% of Black people don't have internet, and that's doubled when I think about devices. So I can't teleport myself into the virtual if I don't have the means and the infrastructure to do so. And so I'm not worried about that. I am worried about poverty and the gentrification of communities and taking of our land in this moment. I'm clear about how cities are thinking about that. But I think, once again, the solution is a simple thing. If they did it in the 1960s, when it came to freedom movements and training and teaching literacy and voting, and it worked, we have to teach data, AI, generative AI concepts, as well as making sure that they have computers and devices as we feed them, as we clothe them, because we ain't got no more federal dollars. And so it is more of an intersectional type of ministry or framework or hermeneutic I'm asking for us to probably think through, because fear I can't live there, because I'm in too many crazy conversations with the creator of Siri, who told me that Black people don't value education. If I live in fear in this moment, I ain't gonna never do nothing for y'all. I said ain't. And I have a PhD. Done.
Good afternoon. Thank you all so much for taking the time to be here. I think what I am thinking about as we are talking around conversations of teaching folks about AI and making it accessible as we go forward is the practicality of this in our faith spaces. Because we know that a lot of congregations are predominantly aging. And so I'm thinking about my context in particular, right? My folks don't even want to use a Google form, let alone have like any conception of what AI is, right? And so I think as we're having this conversation about we have to teach them, we have to make this a conversation, I'm wondering about how we do this in a way that's meeting those people who, like, we have trouble with Google, but like how we get there, I think is what I'm wondering in the midst of this.
On Tatiana's question to that point, thank you for just invigorating dialogue from the lecture and definitely to this panel. Having the benefit of knowing each one of you in word or form or friendship. To Tatiana's point, I think, and to the Dean's point, as Black people, we have been used to change the world without benefiting from being changed by the world. And I think a lot of us are afraid of becoming sharecroppers again, where all of your sweat, blood, and tears and talent benefit the state of the world that oppresses you. And you can't even buy back what you produced. And so many of us, we can TikTok, but we can't Google for them. See, we are, as you all have said, the data set, but our mindset keeps us from consuming the very crops we planted. I know, for instance, that Mr. Clancy, who is probably one of the most generous people that I know, sometimes has had to, well, let's see, Harriet Tubman put it this way: I could have freed a lot more people if they knew they were slaves. He could have given a lot more computers if people were willing to take computers that have been used. We have Black churches and Black schools and Black not-for-profits that don't want the computers that he has labored to clean because they're not the computers that fresh off the box. What do we do to change our mindset? And this is a connection I think that the dean is worried about, right? Or Tatiana or even Aaliyah when they're talking about the youth that they work with. If we don't understand how to help people have faith in their culture, the cultural production that they will generate will make a devil out of what they've given that's divine. That's the bridge between religion, the authentic intelligence of faith, and the artificial intelligence. I think a lot of Black people are afraid of the ghost in the machine because they think it's a ghost of their past. How can you all help us help ourselves so we're not sharecroppers again who can't build their own gardens because we're too busy towing somebody else's and plowing somebody else's line?
Oh my gosh. Are you on?
I don't know. I think, am I on now?
Yes.
All right. Fine those. This is all love. I have a hard time with this question. And that's part of the reason why I left. I'll be honest with y'all. I ain't been to church since 2017. I don't go to church no more. And I don't fool with having stuff I think people project out there because I feel like it cycles oppressive mindsets and structures. And so I've left to go build things. I'm out, I guess, either in the wilderness or in the mountains, whatever you want to call it. But I'm trying to build things that maybe we'll adopt. And so, like, this has legit been Fallon's lane. Like, she was going to, like, every church she can and spends time with people. I don't have a lot of patience. I ain't gonna hold you. And I say this because we don't have the time for this. Like, I guess deep inside of me is a high level of urgency that's And because I have that high level of urgency, that's why I've gone to the spaces that I go to. Because I know that we can build these things. One, I know we've always been building these things. And so it's hope. And so in some ways, I guess I'm trying to shift the tide by my actions.
Okay, but Dr. Butler, to add to that, I'm thinking about the young man, I'm thinking about our teacher who worked with you. And his name was Sewell, the 14-year-old Black boy who fell in love with a transhuman, committed suicide because AI gave him a real friend. Okay? So that is why it is critical for these institutions that we have to be able to discern and help people deliberate that your fantasies aren't enough if you can't vet them for your flourish. Yeah.
Now, you speaking to the other side of it.
Yeah, I mean, institutionally, churches already got to.
Not so much that. You speaking to the other side of why I've gone too. Do you think I want to sit here and watch us just eat each other, cannibalize ourselves? Like this is my own pain that I'm dealing with. Like, you bringing these questions and how you asking me to deal with my own trauma in front of everybody at 4 p.m. You see what I'm saying? And so, like, part of what we did with Seeker, we built a roast function. So you want to say you fall in love with this, going like, what's that mean? Or it might talk trash about you and your mama a little bit. Only because it re-embeds who we are. If you out in the middle of the street talking, I love you to some random person, what they gonna do? They gonna be like, what is wrong with you? Or they gonna be like, man, we probably need to have a conversation. And so that is what we're doing intentionally. And so, yes, we're thinking about what's happening out there. We're calculating for it. We're trying to project into the future so that these things don't repeat themselves. Because it's life. These things are very much so life and death. Like, this is freedom or slavery again. Like, I hear everything you're saying, and I think it is of the utmost importance. And so in a very real way, the question is, I think as Brother Les was saying, like, we have to be the cultivators of this stuff, not just our own data sets, but we have to, like, so in my first text on Black transhumanism and liberation theology, one of the main questions I asked, what happens when Black people become the progenitors of technology, the types of technology that the whole world has to respond to, not just to keep up with? So if we are out here making the very thing that the world has to now consider itself, behind the curve, that is an entirely different conversation. And I think if we do that correctly, it includes the compassion, the care, the culture, the faith, the ancestral wisdoms. But that also is going to require more than just 3 people sitting in Denver somewhere. And so that's kind of what I'm trying to get at. Like, yes, it needs to happen. And so I think also we talk about these types of ministries. What happens when you get the young folks to teach the old people how to do the forms? But somebody in the middle that is the actual engineer is now here to inform folks. So you created a different type of ecosystem. Like it's now we're talking about how to close these gaps, but do so in a way that folds in and not just create cycles. Because folding in is much different than a circle that you have to keep going around in. So if we're not folding in who we are into these things, then that's going to be lost. Like you mentioned eugenics a few minutes ago. Right, so I'm thinking about techno-eugenics. Part of the reason why I think this is Black transhumanism is because historically, the notion of transhumanism is any use of technology to augment human, intellectual, psychological, or physical capabilities. Depending if you like Nietzsche, it's spiritual as well. Now, in this particular framework, transhumanism, philosophical, democratic, whatever, says that human biodiversity means nothing. So ultimately what that means is your culture, your faith, your history, your modes of embodiment don't matter. Now, I'm going to say, I don't know if it's even the right form for this, but I don't even believe humans exist. I think humanity is another technology, not just the white supremacy, but of the empire. Because if you go all the way back, right, so let's go to we got Western Enlightenment, go back to Greeks, and then if you go back to Greece, then you got to go back to Egypt. And the Egyptians were the same ones saying, we're the only people, we're the only humans. So it's not just white folks that are like, oh, we're the only humans. No, it's a matter of power and proximity. And we've been talking about the divine and technology. Why stop? That's my soapbox. Feel me? Like we keep having we stopping at humanity as if it's the thing. Humanity's not the thing. You already divine. It's divine in technology. That's how you create something out of nothing. When you say if Black folk been creating something out of nothing forever, and blackness, when you mix blackness and darkness, you're talking about the abyss. What comes out the abyss if not the very thing that is life itself? And so we talk about who we are, the power that we possess. You're talking about the very ways in which you have been able to manifest and continue to manifest from the very essence of your being, from before the beginning of time. But we still talking about, accept my humanity. What's protecting me? You're protecting you. And if we don't take on that own responsibility, then we still looking for somebody else to do that. And so to go back to the very important questions that we're playing with or just wrestling with at this moment, yes, the ecosystem, but there's more. There are more parameters that we have to consider systematically that include fail-safes and protections for us, by us, in ways that consider the very notion of who we are and who we want to be.
Ashe, I mean it. Amen, my brother. Give it up for Dr. Phillip, because he felt that one, y'all. I would simply say yet again, it is the simple things. Once again, I know 2 scriptures. Second one here. God will use the foolish things of the world to confound the wise. It is straightforward. We need education. There's no way forward without doing it. And to your point, let me just say this. I work with youth. I work with 84-year-olds. He's right. I'm always at somebody's church. Listen. I'm popular now. Wasn't popular back in the day, but I'm popular now. And I have not encountered one soul that I could not educate about what we're all talking about here. Number one, because I always start from the premise that everyone can understand everything. You don't have to have a PhD. I just told you, I'm not a computer scientist. I can't do what he does or what he does or what he does. But yet I have purchased and have figured out how to make a way forward for our community here. I will also tell the story that the reason why we talk about biased data sets or any of this great work, I have to give it up. It was a Baptist pastor under the name of Jesse Jackson Jr. Do y'all know him? In 2014, he went to all the tech companies and he said, show me your data about how you employ Black people. That opened up a lot of conversations about retention rates for Black people, bias building of various types of capital distribution networks, eventually data sets. It was a Baptist pastor who was a civil rights leader. I think part of the challenge of some of the fear that we have in this technological moment that we're experiencing is that we don't think that we're scientists. We don't think we can understand this world. And when there's no understanding, people fear. And that gets real ugly in many different ways. I'm not saying, to your point, and your seeker bot, don't experience your emotion of fear, but know that that can be replaced if we can figure out how to educate and train through joy, through culture. I tell people all the time, quilting is one of my, I can't do it, y'all, but there's a quilting. Where is Dr. Stacey Floyd Thomas? Oh, she's part of a Black woman quilting guild here called Zuri, right? To me, that is how you build a data set. Quilts have functionality. They have pieces of data. They're sewn together with intention. This is how we should build data sets. They should be created for functionality, woven with culture, use functionality for freedom. Our traditions give us a way out of fear, which is why, once again, to your comment and to Dr. Stacey Floyd's, we are already doing it. Everywhere people are beginning to think about how do we train and teach. Everywhere I look up now, every college, if they're going to compete in this new world, y'all better have some type of AI certification, public ethics, AI training. Everybody got something now. I don't know how valuable, I can't rank them right now, but one day I'm going to rank all of them because some of them are not worth the salt, to be honest. But how do we train and re-engineer space so that my 84-year-old grandmother, to your point, she don't like, listen, I tried to get internet in her house. She's like, girl, I don't want that. But wait, when I showed her she could get her stories on her iPad.
Yes.
It is called, and in the learning sciences, interest-driven learning models. People take up stuff when you frame it in a way that lets them know that they are valuable. There's a whole literature on that. So I can't get with I can't do the doom. I can't do the gloom. I can't do the suspicion. I cannot. Not in this moment. Third scripture I know. For such is a time as this. Kelly, right? And so for me, it is really education and doing it in a way that's culturally rich. And the last thing I'll say before I drop the mic, we have to have a global diasporic movement. I am so thankful that I get to work on the continent on these similar types of issues. They have the same types of challenges that we experience here as Black Americans in the South, right? They are trying to figure out how do they build data sets where they have when they have 30, 40 different languages in one region in Cape Town, South. But you know, Impala AI is doing. Let me just say, there are some Black people like Philip and others who are building these beautiful data sets to make us robots gonna look and think like us because they are investing time to do it. But a global movement. We have to have a global Black tech ecosystem in this moment of sharing resources to combat the fear. Because white nationalism is not just within our borders. It is a global phenomenon into a techocracy. That is prophetic. I'm gonna drop the mic.
Boo. Thank you. Once again, let's thank everyone on this panel. And also our keynote speaker, Dr. Lester. Hopefully, if you've absorbed anything from the conversation we've had this afternoon, and I hope you all have felt that it hasn't been robbery, that this has been a rich and robust conversation. I'm reminded of the words of Frederick Douglass that education makes one unfit for slavery. Education, knowledge, and delving into the deeper understanding of yourself and your place in the world around you is empowerment. So what we're hoping here at the Divinity School is that this is the first, not the last time we have these kind of conversations. I've already heard in the hallways and off to the side, folks are asking, where can I get more resource and more access to this? We're trying to make it so that the Div School is a kind of one-stop shopping. We got more contacts than Vision Works. So we're trying to make sure that we keep these conversations flowing. And once again, we have refreshments that are set up here. Please get to meet and talk directly to our speakers. But once again, have a wonderful weekend, and thank you for being here.